Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's no secret that I'm a fan of pistol caliber carbines, particularly with matching handguns. It goes kind of back to the cowboy times, the concept does, and like I told you guys before, I used to hunt deer sometimes with a 357 Magnum lever action rifle. So for me, pistol caliber carbines were kind of something I grew up with a little bit. I really like the idea. And, you know, particularly I like the idea for survival rifles and everything else, home defense. I'm big on it, and a lot of it has to do with relative firepower, accuracy and everything versus noise. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, they've clearly never shot a 16-inch barrel rifle with a subsonic heavy pistol bullet. If you have, you'll understand what I'm talking about, particularly when you start tuning hand loads to start cutting down uncorking pressure. You'd be surprised what you can do, of how you can sound like you have a suppressor on a gun without one, at the expense of a little bit of extra velocity, but still, you know, 147 grain 9mm moving 1,000 feet per second isn't terrible. It's not terrible. Not ideal stopping power, but it's not bad, and in the right carbine you can fire a lot of them really, really fast, and they're accurate, just like I've shown you guys with this one. I mean, it's a 9mm, but I can get center mass hits all day long at 100 yards with it. Not as good in a lot of ways as a standard intermediate rifle cartridge, but they're interesting for the stealth factor, the scouting factor, because it's a little bitty light rifle. I mean, I bet this rifle, even with the aim point and everything on it, it's probably 7 pounds. Easy to pack around. With hot hand loads, you could hunt with it. You also have the option of very, very stealthy rounds. I mean, that has a lot of potential as a survival rifle in the right application and should hit the fan scenarios. I'm a big fan, and I like the idea too because it lets you have a backup handgun that you're sharing the same magazines and ammo with. It's a novel concept. I like it. And I started thinking about it, of how far could you actually take this idea? How far could you really take it? And part of me started thinking about, well, I mean, I do 10mm. You know, I could build some 10mm ARs later. I already have a 10mm. I like hand loading it. If I wanted the stealth factor, you know, I've got a bigger bore. I could always load some 180 grain 40 Smith & Wesson and fire them through the 10mm rifle. Could absolutely do it. But then I started thinking, you know what? And the 10mm is nice, but there are other options today that are more versatile. If you really wanted to push the limits of this concept in terms of the versatility of it as an absolute multi-purpose survival rifle with matching handguns, I realized, sure, no one makes barrels for it, but has anyone noticed that you can get tooling out there for like $100? And I've known people who said, hey, they're successfully doing it, and they're even doing multiple of their own guns, their own pistols, and having no problems cutting aftermarket good chamber-supported pistols like KKM barrels for their 45, cutting them all the way out to a 460 Roland. Doing their own machining. Now, if you're going to build several rifles and handguns, you're going to put decent barrels in them, you could absolutely, if you selected ones that have proper chamber support, you could absolutely cut them all to 460 Roland. And here's where that gets interesting. That gives you the ability to have 3 different calibers, and if you want to go subsonic, you really want to go subsonic and keep it stealthy. Out of that long rifle barrel, a 45 caliber bullet's still going to be better than a 40, particularly a 230 grain to 250 grain 45 bullet, you know, still moving over 1,000 feet per second. You don't want to get hit with that. And in fact, that's a viable medium game hunting load. In some cases, big game hunting load. Depending on how heavy it is, I mean, a 250 grain hard cast lead 45 moving 1050, you could take elk with that. You could take elk with that if you had to. That gives you a lot of survival rifle ability in a subsonic, but by that same token, you have the option of a 460 Roland. I mean, someone could set this up to be a very, very versatile platform with a rifle and then a backup handgun, even a backup hunting handgun. I mean, it would cost a little bit of money, but if someone really wanted to take this concept to the most extreme, cutting your barrels for 460 Roland, and then hand loading 45 super for anything you don't want to be too loud. Not 45, I mean, you could get 45, you could have a stash of 45 for your raw ammo, And like I said, 45 ACP does decent out of a handgun, but 45 ACP is a beast out of a rifle. You don't want to get hit with that at 100 yards. I mean, you really don't. You don't. And anyone who thinks that isn't going to have some pretty decent stopping power, well, I beg to differ. And when you go up to the 45 Super, you could handle subsonics in the 230 range, the 250 grain range, depending on if you want a hollow point or if you're willing to deal with something, you know, bigger and heavier like hard cast lead. You could run 45 Supers to just under the speed of sound, and with the right powder charge, they're going to be very, very quiet. Because again, that's a high pressure round. You can run a really fast powder, and you can have 100% powder burn before that bullet gets to the end of the barrel. You could get a real low uncorking pressure, and you're still going to be pushing up to a 250 grain bullet, 45 caliber in diameter, 1050, 1080. And complete stealth, or even more so, you throw a can on it, it would be completely invisible. I mean, a round like that, subsonic out of that, if you put a can on it out of a rifle like that, you would be pretty much invisible at 100 yards. You're not going to have any muzzle flash. Again, pick the powder right, you're not going to get the tuff of smoke. And it's going to be totally silent. They're not going to hear it. All the only noise is going to be the action at that point. Again, running 45 Super. What happens when you go to 460 Rollin? I think the blowback system will take it. The barrels will take it. Look at the amount of metal you've got there. I mean, 458 SOCOM is put through that same block of steel in the barrels. That same size block of steel you've got there, as long as you get one with good case support, I think full power 460 Rollin rounds will be fine. You're going to need to run a heavy buffer. You might need a heavy spring on the blowback system, but 460 Rollin out of a 16-inch barrel, that's a viable 200-yard rifle. And I mean, let's be honest here, at 100 yards, a lot of people think a 5.56 is an acceptable survival rifle at 100 yards. The only advantage a 5.56 is going to have is going to be range, because you're going to have a much flatter shooting, longer distance accurate round. But at 100 yards or less, 460 Rollin out of that barrel is going to have dramatically more kinetic energy, a dramatically higher power factor, way higher on the power factor. Coming out of that barrel, that's going to be a far more powerful round as far as stopping people goes than a 5.56. More energy, starting with a bigger diameter bullet. Put a hollow point on it and it's going to expand. In fact, I think you're going to get explosive expansion, because most hollow points for the 45 are designed to be running 700, 800 beat per second and expand. What happens when you're pushing on 1500, 1600? They're going to explode pretty much when they hit. And then you've got your handgun to fall back to. Same thing. 460 Rollin might be a bit much, but you could run a bunch of 45 Super. 45 Super's a beast. It technically does the 10 millimeter just slightly. It's a little more energy, a little bigger bore to start with. It beats the 10 millimeter. Wouldn't be a bad backup handgun. And you can make hunting handguns to match it too. I mean, you don't even have to run a little small one. You don't have to run a Glock 20. You could run like the Glock 41 with an RMR on it. Run a 45 Super through that. Monstrous handgun. So you could do all of that, and then if you wanted cheaper plinking stuff, you don't want as much noise or whatever else, if you really want something quiet, you don't have a can, I mean, go back to some 45 ACP, and you'll be able to stockpile 45 ACP cheap even for your non-hand loads. I don't know, I think that would be a really versatile platform. As a survival rifle, shit hit the fan rifle, home defense rifle, and pistol combo, I don't think you're going to go bad with that. I mean, seriously, if someone carried 45 already, it wouldn't be a big deal to have a bunch of 45 Super magazines of subsonics laying around their house that they could reload both their pistols and their rifles with. Very versatile combo. I mean, when I think about it, I like the 9mm. I think it's a fantastic little setup to run in these carbines. And like I said, I thought about the 10mm, but really having the versatility of being able to run and hand load 45 ACP, 45 Super, and 460 Rollin for matching pistols and AR rifles, running the same magazines, I don't know. I think that gives a tremendous amount of versatility. And you've got everything down to 45 mouse fart loads if you want. Everything from that all the way up to full power 460 Roland, which is used to kill grizzly bear. It's 44 Magnum level power. Being able to run that through a 16-inch barrel AR. Even the 44 lever guns don't compete with that because they're not magazine fed and semi-auto. Again, I think it gives a lot of versatility. So if someone really wanted to take the matching pistol and carbine platform to its absolute limits in terms of versatility and everything it could do, I think someone who's a hand loader, particularly someone who's willing to ream their own barrels and stuff a little bit with some tooling to do their own conversions, I think that setup has a lot of potential. I mean, that would allow you to maximize on the concept. And it's something, I don't know, it might be an interesting project. I'll think about that in the future because, I mean, that's going to be an expensive project to do that, particularly to set up multiple guns. That might be an expensive project, but we'll see what happens in time. I'd consider messing with it. Like I said, I think the 460 Roland is a bit overkill, other than in the very specific applications, but the 45 Super isn't. 45 Super is, I don't know, for someone who's decently strong, someone who's in shape, someone who works out, lifts weights, I don't think that's going to be a bad caliber, particularly multi-purpose caliber. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.